So one of the first things that I have been focusing on is, know how we always are telling you, okay, put your elbow in, push away, push down, right? What I want you to think about when you're pushing down and pushing away is to get a certain pressure and just hold that once you find a pressure that is actually moving the clay, if that makes sense. And I'll show you what that means. So I like to have my posture pretty close. I tuck my elbow in, rock my knee, and then squeeze the splash pan. So I am gonna push away a little bit, and I'm actually being able to say, okay, I'm moving the clay, right? Now I'm gonna add my second hand, and I'm just gonna hold. I'm just gonna hold. I'm gonna find that sweet spot where I'm pushing, applying equal pressure with both hands. But after I find that sweet spot, I don't push any further past that, if that makes sense. And then I just hold. And I'm just holding both hands steady. And when I feel like it's pretty well on center, then I just ease off. The thing about it is that we never ever are gonna have the clay perfectly centered, right? I want you to see what my hands are doing. So the next stage for me is I want to get this open. And I don't want this star much bigger than this, right? And if we did want it bigger, we just push down, find that pressure, let our left hand ease out a little tiny bit to accommodate the amount of pressure we're pushing down with. Find that thickness or that pressure and hold steady together. Now the easiest way for me to open this is I take this part of my hand and I just make sure my elbow is pointed straight away from me, right at 3 o'clock, and just start pushing down right in the center. And I just hold steady. And by holding that pressure steady, it keeps it on center. And then I look at it, nope, I want it to go a little deeper. So I'm just gonna do the same thing. Hold this here. This thumb is actually inside. My left hand is over my knuckles. My fingers are over the knuckles. Apply my wrist into that. Elbow is straight at 3 o'clock, hold. Now when I want to start opening that, now I'm just gonna start rocking my hand and my elbow towards my body. Just hold steady. And then ease off. Ease off. Okay? That's a big one. I want to compress this. I'm going to push down a little bit more. At this stage, I would rather have you be too thick than have you be too thin and have to try to add clay to that center. Right? We've all been there, right? So now I'm going to check. So that's pretty thick. So I'm going to just do a little bit more work here. Now push straight down, compress out to the side, following with the tips of my fingers with my thumb. Come straight back in, compress. Now because I want this to have a pretty flat bottom, because we're gonna have to have those weights sit in here, I want to try to make sure that this curve right here is more flat like an L, okay? So I'm gonna do the same exact thing. Come right back in here, compress that middle. When I get out here to the edge, I'm just gonna push straight into that wall right at 3 o'clock. Come back in, compressing. But see how now we have this where it's deeper, right? Okay. Now we want to regroup the rim and regroup all of this. Make sure it's all centered. So I'm going to get this donut, this C, with my left hand. Get both of my elbows tucked in. Right here at 6 o'clock. Thumb is on the bat. This fingers, remember we do this with our hand. Hold this sponge, lay it right over that right or that left finger, flaps those fingers in, squeeze, get that compressed. I'm gonna pull my inside fingers towards me a little tiny bit. This first pull, I'm just gonna take my hand from here and rotate it up like that. Okay? Do you have any questions right now?
Why are you doing it like that?
Because if we try to take this whole donut and try to pull it, that's where we run into that pinching, grabbing, getting thinness in the clay in that first, second, third pull, okay? But if we just go from here, elbows tucked in, get that thickness between your outside thumb, inside fingers, and gently rotate that outside thumb up. Keep the rim compressed. Now we haven't grabbed, pulled, or any of that stuff. It's all the same thickness. Okay? For the sake of this demonstration and this video for the next people watching, I want you to practice making the clay come up only on the outside first. When we do that, as we support our right hand with our left hand, like this, all of your fingertips with the sponge here, supporting on the splash guard here. Get those fingers, push that clay up. You can see that little bit is gonna roll off the top. That's fine, don't worry about that. The exercise is to notice that we don't have to pinch or grab or anything to get that clay to move up. Second pull. So we're not gonna be thinking about pulling that clay. We're just gonna use our inside fingers as a wall. They never move from this position right here. I'm just gonna rest them on the inside. Outside, I get that little ring around the bottom, compress that into the body so that it doesn't peel off. So I have these fingers just creating this wall on the inside, outside fingers meeting that, and now we just apply pressure from the outside, pushing against those fingers on the inside, moving both hands up together. Keep pulling up, compress that rim. So the difference here is that we don't have our fingers digging in on the inside or on the outside. We're just creating this pressure against the inside and the outside. So then when we're trying to move that clay up, we're not like grabbing it or creating thick, thin spots because we've been pinching it. Okay, so my student was she would be pulling, pinching, and then break it off, and then it tears off in your hand, right? So then I was thinking, okay, how do I teach a new student how to move the clay without grabbing it? So we just start here at the bottom again, compress that clay in, give our fingers a little space to work. Outside fingers are always stacked like this. You can start with them down here like this, and as you come higher up, like rotate your hand. I always use the sponge, it stays wet. Inside fingers, just gonna create this wall, supporting my thumb on my outside thumb. Get that thickness, create that wall on the inside. Outside hand is just pushing against those inside fingers that are just holding steady. Everything comes up.
Did you do?
This is 5. Get to this top, ease off, compress that rim. Now we do want this rim to be a little thicker. Okay, so do you have any questions at this point? The important thing to remember about this technique is that we're never moving our inside hand from this straight with our fingertips, and the outside hand is like gonna just push against those and bring everything up like this. There's no grabbing, there's no pinching. Thing that does is that it keeps everything really uniform all the way to the top and all the way to the bottom. So now that there's a little bit more weight down here I want to get, so I just push all that in. Inside hands are still straight like this. Thumb is over the top. I'm just going to push with my outside fingers, holding steady till I get to that point where I can meet my thumb, inside thumb to my outside thumb. Everything's still the same. Come up and then ease off.
So
compress
how
that
many
rim.
pounds of, say, sauerkraut can you actually do in that, or kimchi?
It's a, for this
Is it 2
size, it's
pounds
just a
off or
very, it's gonna be very small. Like you're probably only gonna get half a head or maybe a full head. Depends on what all you put in here, right? But this important part of this technique is just remembering that we're not grabbing, we're not pinching, we're not doing any of that. This technique is all about keeping from the bottom to the top as uniform in thickness as we can without any variations in the thickness of the clay. And the way that I do it is I use this inside hand just as like a paddle. Now if I was gonna change the shape and I wanted to make a bowl shape, then we have this transfer of pressure where all of a sudden when I want it to bowl out, this hand is applying pressure, this hand is supporting, then the transfer of pressure switches, okay? Any questions here? And you can use this technique for as tall as you can get it. For this, I don't want to get it too much taller, but I do want to just get this wall pretty straight. And then make sure that this rim has enough in it to create that gallery, right? And I don't think it does at this particular moment, which that could be a problem. Now I want to straighten this up, because if you want to have this wall super straight for those weights to go on in the inside, I'm just going to support with this inside rib and push out a little bit. The other thing that this technique of throwing does is it allows you to fully utilize most of the clay, because you haven't ruined the integrity or compromised the integrity of the clay by having thin or thick spots. Now it's all this virtually the same thickness. The only thing I'm worried about is that this is really nice and straight, because when we want to put those weights inside, we're gonna have to like slip them inside there and have them fit pretty well inside there. Okay? Okay, so you can stop that video.
What a bunch of